This is your host, Elijah Rashad Jackson, and we're going to get right into a special episode of the Full Court Press Podcast. This will be an annual theme here on the show, and that's NFL Predictions Week. So we're going to get right down into it. We're going to be talking about each team, where they stand in the division, who I think will win the division, who I think will win each conference, and who I see going on to compete and win in the Super Bowl. Now, while we won't quite get down into the exact specifics of each win by win, I have done a game by game analysis. That'll come later on in the week in multiple shorts, so be on the lookout for that. But we won't today talk exactly about each win by win, where the records exactly will stand. But I will give you my division winner for each one. I will give you my conference winner, and I will give you my prediction of the Super Bowl winner. Like I said, this will be an annual theme here on the show. We'll do this every year leading into the start of the regular season as we wrap up the preseason here. So getting right down into it, man, let's get started. We're going to start here in the AFC North, where I'll just say right off the top, you guys have heard me say a lot about the Baltimore Ravens and the Steelers and the Browns and the Bengals in episodes leading up to this week. So with that said, coming in at number one, winning the division of the AFC North, I have the Baltimore Ravens. Following behind them, I would have the Steelers at 2. At 3, I would have the Bengals. And at 4, I would have the Browns. Now, I do see a tight race in the 3 to 4 spot. While that may not matter so much for playoff contention, I think it does matter as far as where the Bengals and the Browns see themselves going, as far as what's their next steps for their future. The Bengals looking to get younger and rebuild their defense. The Browns looking to go into the season and find their long-term solution at quarterback, or will they be looking to draft another quarterback in next year's draft, having made that trade this year with the Jaguars and having other compensation to make a move? But up at the top, like I said, the Steelers coming in second behind who I believe will be the best top to bottom roster in the NFL, being the Ravens. I have the Steelers competing heavy for a playoff position, more than likely securing a wild card spot, getting into the playoffs, and maybe even getting a win or two in the playoffs. But I would have to say undoubtedly the Ravens are the surefire shoe-in team to win the AFC North. Next is the AFC South. And this is a division that has a lot of young potential from top to bottom, whether you're looking at the quarterbacks leading these teams or you're looking at the skill position guys or the defensive potential. There's a lot of variation that could go on here, but this division, I see a tight race between the top two teams that I would say, and that's between the Jaguars and the Texans. Now, while, like I said, we won't quite get into the specifics of the record, I do think it will be a really close race. It may even come down to a tiebreaker in the division between Jacksonville and Houston. But I would have to say, just leaning towards, looking back on my predictions or looking back on my quarterback rankings, I would have to lean towards the Texans just with CJ Stroud. But there is a lot of uncertainty going on with the Texans right now. I mean, Tank Dell will be coming back at some point in the season. How will he look coming out? Having moving on from Larry Tunsil, how will they look going into the season, given that O-line was a problem for the Texans last year? And then, of course, everybody wants to see what is Travis Hunter going to be coming into the league as a two-way player. How will that work out and pan out, him alongside Brian Thomas Jr. and being a leading corner for Jacksonville? But even down at the bottom of the division, while I don't expect a lot of wins out of Indianapolis, or I don't expect a lot of wins coming from the Titans this year, I do think that they both will be somewhat respectable, at least as far as you'll see flashes of what they can be moving forward in the division. Having a young quarterback like a Cam Ward, I'm looking to definitely see splashes of talent and potential from him. And they actually have a pretty good receiving room. While it's a bit of an older receiving core, I do like that they have a lot of veteran experience mixed in with a lot of the younger guys, some guys that have playoff and number one experience in the NFL as far as being there for Cam Ward being able to help teach him the nuances of the NFL game and just having the knowledge and the experience for him to lean on as he grows throughout the season. And the situation in Indianapolis, like I said, I do respect the roster. I do respect Steichen, their head coach, but there's just a lot of turmoil. I don't quite like what's going on with the starting Daniel Jones over Anthony Richardson. I feel like it's a bit too early in Richardson's progression. While I guess I could say I understand, I can't quite say that I agree with what's going on in Indianapolis. And because of that, I don't expect a lot to come out from the Colts, even though I do feel like they have talent scattered across their roster. Next is the AFC East. And right off the bat, I'm going to say that the Buffalo Bills will take this division again. It's basically been their division since the days of Tom Brady has passed. We pretty much can count Josh Allen in to lead the Buffalo Bills to winning the AFC East. And I think this year will be just another year at it, following up from the MVP season that Josh Allen just had this past season, growing more and more in that offense, bringing in more weapons alongside of Keon Coleman and getting a guy like a James Cook signed up for the season and renewing his contract and just different things that I feel like will improve this roster. And they have a chance to take that next step forward. Like I said, I plan on them winning this division, but it's more so about them taking that next step. What will they do after securing that playoff spot? Coming in at a close second in the AFC East, I'm going to have the New York Jets. And while that may be blasphemous or outrageous to some people, I am a Patriots fan through and through. Let me start by saying that. And I do think that we'll have a good season. I have us coming in third in the division, but I just don't quite think we're ready to take that next step of being back to our winning ways of being a perennial playoff contender. And I do think Drake May will show great progression from the tail end of his first year. And I do think he will be a great quarterback in this league going forward. But like I said, I just don't think this roster is still, while we have veteran talent sprinkled amongst the young stars that we have, I just don't think we're quite in the position to be a true playoff contender yet. But you never know, things could swing one way or the other. But the Jets, I just feel like under the new leadership of Aaron Glenn, with a new quarterback and Justin Fields, and everybody kind of looks at Justin Fields like he's been moved on, as in a failure in multiple situations, being moved on from Chicago and being moved on from Pittsburgh. But I mean, if you look back at it in retrospect, the Steelers actually wanted to bring Justin Fields back. That's not my word. That's reporting from the NFL and from the Steelers themselves. But Justin Fields didn't quite like the way things were handled as far as the QB situation between him and Russell Wilson, and felt that he had a better opportunity moving on with a head coach like an Aaron Glenn, reuniting himself with his former number one in Garrett Wilson out in New York. So that's a team that I see having a lot of potential and could even challenge the Bills for that number one spot in the AFC East. While it's a big swing as far as where they necessarily were last year with Aaron Rodgers at the helm, I think Justin Fields' game, being able to influence the offense, him paired with a Breece Hall, can lead you to be a number one running offense with the defense that the New York Jets have, with a guy like a Quentin Williams and Sauce Gardner and so on and so forth. That's a great starting position, especially in AFC East football. Going to play a lot of cold weather games, a lot of bad weather games. If you can dominate the time of possession, if you can dominate, in the trenches, running the ball on the defensive line, I think that's going to lead to a lot of wins. And for that, I would have the Jets coming in at number 2. And like I said, the Patriots at 3. And coming in last are the Dolphins. I'm just not that. The Dolphins have a lot of talent, don't get me wrong. Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, Tua coming back healthy this year. I did kind of like the addition of them bringing in Minkah Fitzpatrick, although you did lose Jonnu Smith and Jalen Ramsey. It's just a lot going on with the Dolphins, and I like Mike McDaniels as a coach, maybe more so the offense than the all-around head coaching of Mike McDaniels, and the personality of Mike McDaniels I like. But if truth be told, like I said, I'm I'm not a psychic or anything, but in the general history, the general feel of how I've seen NFL football go and how things seem to have been going these past few seasons for the Dolphins, I feel like we may have seen the best of what we can get from this iteration of the Dolphins. And I may be wrong, but this just feels like the year the Dolphins finally shake things up and make some changes, whether that's defensively, whether that's at the head coach position. A lot of rumors surrounding Tyreek Hill. Maybe he'll be moving on, maybe back to Kansas City or, just somewhere that needs that wide receiver splash, that kick to the offense, and a better situation as far as a team contending for a Super Bowl. Up next, we have the AFC West. And honestly, this was a really hard one for me to rank. While I do respect Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid as the top of the top when it comes to coach and quarterback and tandem in that sense, I don't think this year will be as cut and dry as it has been in years past. The AFC West has picked up a lot, and talent has picked up a lot as far as drafting and free agency. And there's a lot of new faces moving around the league, but there's just so much going on within the AFC West as it's already been a competitive division within the last 4 or 5 years or so. But there's a lot of things that I just expect to take the step forward here. So I would say just giving the safest bet, because Patrick Mahomes has shown time and time again, the Chiefs and Andy Reid have shown time and time again, you can count them into the playoffs. They will be a true contender. They do have a chance to make it back to the Super Bowl, and you will have a highly motivated, tuned in and engaged Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid, Travis Kelce, and so on and so forth, coming out of the way that they came out of last year's Super Bowl and taking that devastating loss to the Philadelphia Eagles and just going through a season that wasn't quite what we're used to seeing from Kansas City. While they did have a winning record and they still had number one seed and they still were able to, get through the season as a winning franchise, record-wise. When you look at it game by game, there was so much more nuance that it didn't quite feel like definitely the explosive days of a Kansas City back to Tyreek Hill's days, or, even just the surefire expectancy of the Chiefs being who we know the Chiefs can be. Like I said, I expect with the Broncos and the additions that they've made this year to their defense with a guy like Hufanga and different guys that they brought into that team, and just a guy like a Bo Nix taking a step forward, and Sean Payton being another year at the helm, really implementing his offense and defense and how he wants things run as far as top to bottom, on the field and off the field, culture-wise. I think the Broncos will take another big step forward, and I would have them number 2 in the division. Next, I would say I would have the Raiders. Now, the Raiders, there's a lot of variables that could take this one way or the other, but I truly believe that the Raiders will be a scare for a lot of teams, including, and not just their own division, but in their conference and across the league. Geno Smith is far and away a day and night upgrade from what they've had in the past year or so. Just looking down in Vegas, even, from Aiden O'Connell to Jimmy Garoppolo, whoever you want to mention in between, Geno Smith will be an immediate push and leadership and talent on the field and will produce wins. The drafting of Ashton Genty, we all know more than likely, or not more than likely, I would say more often than not, the position that produces the most immediately coming into the NFL is the running back position. It transitions the smoothest, being, while it's a different level of athleticism and strength and things along those lines, the requirements of the NFL running back compared to the collegiate running back are largely the same. And we all know that running backs take the heaviest toll as far as, well, I won't say the heaviest, that may be unfair to guys like linemen and defensive players that do a lot of hitting, like at the linebacker position or, at the outside linebacker or DE and things, D tackle, things of that nature. But definitely from the offensive position outside of the O-line, I would say, as far as skill positions, the running back takes the most punishment. So you often see teams expect to get the most out of their running back in the first 4 to 5, 6 years of their career. And I think Ashton Genty is one of those special talents. I mean, you don't get to the level of being in conversations with a Barry Sanders in college and not be a special talent. And I think he's coming into a situation where a coach like Pete Carroll, proven Super Bowl winner, Super Bowl appearances, a guy who's reshaped franchises from the collegiate level and the NFL level, I think that'll be a match made in heaven. He already has the chemistry with Geno Smith. He already has the offense kind of set how he wants to do it. He knows what he likes to do and how he wants to run the ball more so than lean into the pass. And there'll be a lot of play action for Geno Smith to thrive off of. But I think we'll see Ashton Genty step into kind of a beast mode 2.0. Not better, just newer. But Ashton Genty has a chance to be special. And for that, I think the Raiders have a chance at that third, maybe even the second spot in the AFC West. But I'm going to say third for right now. Coming in last, this is no disrespect to Justin Herbert or John Harbaugh, who I definitely expect to take, like I said, another step forward in the division, in the conference, and proven to be more of a playoff and a championship contender this year. John Harbaugh, much like I said with Pete Carroll, we've seen him do it at multiple stops on the collegiate and the professional level. So it's only a matter of time before they really get the ball rolling. I just don't see it as quite the year that the Chargers take that step over these other three teams. And for that, I would have the Chargers coming in last. But it's not like I would have them with an under 500 record. I would still have them with a winning record. I just don't know if it's necessarily going to stack up well enough, given that they play in one of the toughest, if not the toughest, division in football. Moving on to the NFC, we have the NFC North first. And this may be a surprise to a lot of folks, but I see a lot of teams. We always have the worst to first kind of team, the worst to first kind of guys in the NFL and just throughout sports in general. I mean, you guys hear me say it all the time. You don't start off where you left off last year. It's a whole new season. The season starts 0-0. And there's new guys coming in. There's guys going out. There's roster changes and coaching changes, staffs turnover constantly, teams turnover constantly. And I think you'll see that be maybe the most prevalent of any division that we'll discuss here in the NFC North. I expect to see Caleb Williams take a big step forward under Ben Johnson, being more comfortable in this offense. Drafting a guy like a Colston Loveland where they can run a lot of two tight end sets to kind of amplify not only the blocking, but amplify a lot of simpler plays for Caleb Williams, a lot of underneath stuff that will help unlock Rome Odunze, that will help take focus off of DJ Moore with a guy like Luther Burden coming in. I just think there's a big step forward coming for this offense and just Caleb Williams being comfortable with himself, comfortable with his game, and growing his fundamentals and growing from the technical aspect because he already has all the natural talent as far as arm ability and escapability. He has all that. I think a guy like Ben Johnson fine-tunes him to where we finally see what fans of the Chicago Bears have been looking for so many years. And me being a kid from Chicago, I'm definitely looking forward to seeing the first 4,000-yard passer. And I think that combined with the run game, combined with a stout defense and what they already have proven in the past few years will lead them to win in this division. But the two biggest surprises I think most people would see out of my predictions for this division, I have the Lions coming in at number 2. And like I said, it won't be, like I said for the Chargers earlier, I don't think they'll have a losing record by any means, but losing both coordinators and great coordinators at that, I see a lot of potential in head coaching positions for Ben Johnson and for Aaron Glenn moving forward. And I just think that's a big turnover. While I respect Dan Campbell to the utmost and he gets the majority of the credit, deservingly so, for the rebuild and how we now look at the Detroit Lions as a competing franchise when they've been in so much turmoil throughout the past few years, decades, whatever you want to say. I just think that turnover of, while they did have a depleted defense, most certainly throughout the tail end and midway through last season, I just think losing both of your coordinators is going to be a big shock to this offense. it's also, while I respect Jared Goff's game, I think we're kind of getting down the line into kind of what you saw from Jared Goff in the Sean McVay offense when he was with the Rams. How much more are you expecting to get out of this offense with Jared Goff at the helm? And that's not me saying that I think they should trade him or they will trade him or move on or anything in that aspect. I just think it's going to take a bigger step forward in other areas for them to take that next step as far as getting deeper into the playoffs or even making a Super Bowl run than where they currently are and how they're currently constructed. Coming up next in the NFC North, I would have the Vikings and the Packers fighting it out for their third spot. I'm going to say the Vikings come in at 3, coming up behind the Lions. But while Sam Darnold is not a world-beating quarterback by no stretch of the imagination, and I do believe that J.J. McCarthy has all the talent to be a starting quarterback in this NFL. You've heard Coach Harbaugh just talk about what he brought to Michigan, not only on the field, but as a leader as well. But I just don't think you go from a guy who essentially this is still his rookie year, getting hurt early on last year, not being able to play in the regular season. This is still essentially J.J. McCarthy's rookie year. While he will be more familiar with the offense than a rookie, I just think it's a situation where they might struggle a bit. You have Jordan Addison facing the suspension that he'll have to go through within the season that may deplete this offense that is stacked up. They didn't bring back a guy like a Stephon Gilmore while they still have Brian Flores at the helm of their defense. I think having Gilly on your team unlocks a different comfortability for this team that was very instrumental in their winning season last year, and it just won't be quite the same this year. Coming up behind them, I would have the Packers, and the Packers are really kind of a wild card, a sleeper, if you would say. Jordan Love has all the talent of any quarterback in this league. They have great depth at the receiver position with a guy like Christian Watson, drafting a guy like a Matthew Golden, having a Romeo Doubs on his team. There's a lot of great potential in Green Bay, but I just don't know if they stack up well enough with all the talent and potential of the rosters across their own division, and I would have them coming in last because of that. Next is the NFC South. And quite honestly, no disrespect to any Buccaneers, Panthers, Falcons, Saints fans, whoever you are, wherever you are, this might be the worst division in the league this year, and they could surprise me. I do have the Panthers as my number one sleeper team. I'm expecting a lot from Bryce Young as far as what he needs to show improve this year in order for the Panthers franchise not to be looking on as far as moving on from a Bryce Young and still him having his chance in Carolina to be the number one guy, to be the starting quarterback, the face of the franchise. And we've seen him progress from time and time moving on. We've seen him progress there in Carolina and become better and become more comfortable and using his athleticism to his advantage and it not being such a burden to him as he learns how to navigate the NFL and learns how to navigate this offense. And they continue to grow the receiver position. I love what they did for their receiving core, bringing in a guy like an Xavier Leggett, who they were drafted last year, drafting Ted McMillan this year, bringing in a guy like a Jimmy Horn from Colorado, even bringing back a guy who I'm glad to see back in the league, one of the best route runners I've ever seen in the league, definitely in this era, like a Hunter Renfrow, who has veteran experience for these young guys and will be a guy that Bryce Young can lean into and rely on in key situations. This is a team that I see taking a big step forward, but I have them coming second in the division because I think Baker Mayfield, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, so on and so forth, I think they'll lead the Buccaneers to another win down in the AFC South. And as far as the Falcons, while I am looking for a breakout season from Michael Penix, I am looking out for a breakout season, hopefully for Kyle Pitts. I need to see him produce to the potential level that he has finally this year and see what this offense can be with Michael Penix solely at the helm. They're likely to move on from Kirk Cousins this year and fully dedicate to the Michael Penix movement. But I still think it's only going to be good enough for third in the division. And last, I have the Saints. Quite honestly, I'm hoping Alvin Kamara moves on somewhere else. Excuse me. Coming out of my alma mater at Tennessee, I've always enjoyed watching his game. I've always respected his talent and his versatility and what he brings to the game. But I just don't think the Saints are in any type of window to be a contender or be true competition this year. Spencer Rattler, Tyler Shough, it just really, they don't strike me as top of the line quarterbacks. And while they could both end up being starters, I do like Spencer Rattler's potential. I don't quite know as much about Tyler Shough, but I just don't have a lot of hope or faith in the situation of what's going on down in New Orleans. I mean, I haven't liked the direction of their team in the past few years, having a key leader like a Tyrann Mathieu who just retired. I just don't like the direction of the team, and I think undoubtedly they'll be coming in last in the NFC South. In the NFC East, you have wild cards, and it could go one of two ways. I think it could either be top heavy, with the Eagles certainly coming in at number one, repeating as champions of the division. I think the Commanders do have a chance to stir that story up and to get in the mix and take over that winning spot, get that leading playoff spot and win the division in the NFC East. But one reason I would have them at 2 behind the Eagles instead of taking that step forward, there is the possibility of the sophomore slump. We've seen great quarterbacks go through it, and Jayden Daniels is subject to that this year. They have more film on them. They have more of an opportunity to know what they're facing, and there'll be less of an element of surprise. And then 2, is Terry McLaurin going to be on the field week 1, week 2, week 3? Whenever he'll be back on the field, they'll be that much better for it, and I'll be more confident in what they have going on in Washington. But as far as right now, I would have the Eagles number 1, the Commanders coming in at 2, and then next I would have the New York Giants. I love what the Giants have from a defensive standpoint. You guys have heard me talk about Kayvon Thibodeau and the potential of an Abdul Carter and having a Brian Burns, but also just the QB room is so important in the NFL, just the QB position in general. But I love what I've seen in this preseason from Russell Wilson. I love what I've seen from Jackson Dart, who will likely take over as the starter at some point. I even love what I've seen from Jameis Winston and Tommy DeVito. But I don't think it'll be quite enough for them unless this defense just plays outrageous, which is a possibility. Because, I mean, that front 7 is unbelievable just as far as the raw talent and just the overall potential that they have in those young players. But I think they'll come in 3rd in the division. And then last in the division, it's a real toss-up with what's going to go on with the Cowboys. And my biggest skepticism in Dallas is we all know that the Micah Parsons saga is continuing, and it's a situation that at this point I'm not sure will get resolved. That early on I was thinking maybe Micah Parsons would still end up on the field week 1, but at this point I'm not sure. It's more than just the way that the contract negotiations have gone. It's more so the relationship between Micah Parsons and Jerry Jones and how he's handled the situation. Well, I'm not sure if Micah Parsons wants to return to the situation, and he may be willing to take the risk to have a quote-unquote injury or to just step away from time and not want to accept the franchise tag and just take the risk of not returning to this team. And at least early on in the season, trying to apply some pressure to the Cowboys by not playing and see how that plays out for them. And the way that this defense has looked over the past few years with Michael Parsons, while they've performed as far as to a winning level with Michael Parsons on the field, the run defense has been a problem from them. And I don't see a great improvement in that, especially without Michael Parsons. While you do have the addition of George Pickens coming to the team, that's not a surefire acceleration of wins to me. This could almost be like the NFC version of the Bengals to me. Like, you have your 2 top stars in a George Pickens, who's kind of a wild card right now because we see Pittsburgh move on from a lot of guys who don't quite do the same things in their next stops. while I'm not expecting it, I think George Pickens will have a great year alongside CeeDee Lamb, this being his first time really not being the main focus of a defense. But I say that to say, like I said, the way that we saw the Bengals last year, you could have a Jamar Chase be the Triple Crown winner. You could have a Joe Burrow throwing for 4 or 5,000 yards. You could have a T. Higgins who's a 1A more than he is, or 1B more than he is a receiver 2. But if your defense is severely lacking, there's only so far that you can go in the NFL with that. And without Michael Parsons, I'm just not sure what to expect at all from the Cowboys or from the coaching change. While people may not quite like Mike McCarthy, you do have to respect Mike McCarthy's resume as far as being able to lead teams to wins. And it may not be the ultimate win because he only has the one Super Bowl in his resume, but we just don't, I'm not quite sure what we're getting from Schottenheimer. And for that, I have the Cowboys coming in last in the NFC East. Moving on, the NFC West is another tight division that I see in football, but it's really between the top 2 teams. I think it'll be a little more top heavy, kind of like I was mentioning with the NFC East. I think it'll be more of a 2-team race, and that'll be between the Rams and the 49ers. I have the Rams coming in at number 1. I love the addition of Davante Adams. I think he's going to be a big help. While Cooper Kupp is an amazing receiver, I won't take any shot or slight at Cooper Kupp. I think he's going to have a good year down in Seattle, but I just think it's more of a step up and opening up of what Davante Adams' game does in contrast to Puka Nakua's game that'll open up the field for a guy like a Matt Stafford. And if he can stay healthy, which that is a fair question given his age and injury history, but I mean, it's the NFL. This is high collision car accidents happen on a play-to-play basis. This is guys enforcing their will against each other. Injury is a caveat or a variable that has to be included for every team. So I think if Matt Stafford can stay healthy, that he can lead the Los Angeles Rams to being the division winner in the NFC West. But coming in right behind them at number 2, I would have the San Francisco 49ers, another team where injury is a key concern, with CMC coming back from his injury last year. And you saw the big difference that made for the offense while they were able to sustain as far as production in the run game. It's just not quite the same influence of what CMC brings, like a guy we talked about earlier with the Alvin Kamara. I mean, CMC is such a impact. Christian McCaffrey can be in the slot as a receiver. He can catch the ball out the backfield. He can be your workhorse running back. He just does so much for that Kyle Shanahan offense, much like Terrell Davis did, unlocking Mike Shanahan's offense back in the days with the Denver Broncos. You need that star back, because it's nice to have a bullpen, so to say, a running back by committee, but there's nothing that adds up to the talent a guy like a CMC brings to the game. Coming up next in the division at number 3, I would have the Cardinals. I do love some of the things that the Cardinals have done. Another year of Marvin Harrison with Kyler Murray. I think they'll take a step forward. You'll see a little bit more out of Marvin Harrison Jr. I love the pick and the addition of Will Johnson to this defense. I think he'll take a step forward as far as leading his defense and being the number 1 corner sooner than later. But it's just not a lot that I see as far as what's happened down in Arizona that'll turn his team around. And I'm not sure this is the year that the Cardinals are quite in contention or true competition to win the NFC West or to even make the playoffs. And last in the division, while, yes, they made the addition of Sam Darnold, I'm not quite sure if Sam Darnold is better than Geno Smith. Honestly, I probably would say that Geno Smith, if I had to rank him, I would probably put Geno Smith ahead of Sam Darnold, just seeing what he's done with less talent. Looking at a guy, like I said, with a Cooper Kupp, I would have Davante Adams if I had to rank him ahead of Cooper Kupp. And I think they'll both have productive seasons here in the NFC West playing for Seattle. I think they'll both be, in a good position in the changes that they've made around this team. But I just don't see them moving into a true contending position where they're a real threat to the Rams or the 49ers. It may be tough, interdivisional play or, that competition, the rivalries that are always there, especially between the Seahawks and the 49ers. But I just don't see them winning out in this division or even making the playoffs, if I'm being honest. Sam Darnold not having a Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison and TJ Hawkinson like he had last year, I just don't see you getting the same production out of a guy like a Sam Darnold. While I do hope all the best for him, I hope he's really found his footing in the NFL, coming in as a highly touted prospect with a lot of potential. I'm glad he's in a stable situation still being with Seattle. They do have a run game. Like I said, they do have Jackson Smith and Jigba, and they do have Cooper Kupp, like we mentioned. So he still got weapons around him. And you may see JSN take that step forward to where maybe he does show and prove that he can be on the level of those guys that we mentioned in Minnesota. But that's a big reach for me to say that the Seahawks will be better than the Rams, who I have winning the division, the 49ers, or even the Cardinals this year. And so that's my winner of each division as we look back over it. Like I said, in the AFC North, I have the Ravens winning out, the Steelers coming in at 2, the Bengals at 3, the Browns at 4. The AFC South, I had the I had the Texans winning, coming in behind them, maybe tying with them even. It's going to be a close race, I feel like, between the Texans and the Jaguars. But I would have Jacksonville at 2, Tennessee at 3, and the Colts coming in at 4. In the AFC East, I would have the Bills winning, the Jets maybe contending for that and challenging them for that. But I think the Jets are more likely to make it in to the playoffs on a wild card position, coming in at number 2. The Patriots at 3, and the Dolphins coming in last, maybe looking to move on and shake things up after this year. In the AFC West, I would have the Chiefs winning the division in a close race between the Broncos and the Las Vegas Raiders, coming in at 2 and 3 respectively behind the Chiefs. And then the Chargers down at 4, still with a winning record. Like I said, I think this could definitely be the best division in football this year. In the NFC, starting in the North, I had the Bears coming in at number 1, the Lions at 2, the Vikings at 3, and the Packers fighting it out for that 3rd spot with the Vikings. But I have them currently coming in last. In the NFC South, I would have the Buccaneers coming in at 1, the Panthers at 2, with a chance to really take a step forward and surprise some people this year and take over that spot from the Buccaneers. But I think it's going to be a close race between those two. The Falcons coming in at 3. We'll see what Michael Penix can do. We'll see if Kyle Pitts can take a step forward, like we said. And the Saints coming in last. And I think the Saints are quite honestly in a position where they may be looking to blow things up and just get a complete fresh start here, although they are very cap strapped and don't have a lot of directions to go. But I think it's time that you take a big swing down in New Orleans and shake things up and kind of look to reset the table. In the NFC East, I have last year's champions coming in, last year's Super Bowl winners coming in at number 1, the Philadelphia Eagles at 2, coming up right behind them. Last year's Rookie of the Year, Offensive Rookie of the Year, Jaden Daniels leading the Commanders to number 2, the Giants coming in at 3, and the Cowboys coming in last, with the turnover and turmoil going on in that situation. And lastly, the NFC West, I have the Rams winning the division, the 49ers coming in at 2 in a close race, the Cardinals coming in at 3, and the Seahawks last in the division. And for the AFC, I think this is finally the year the Ravens break through and make the Super Bowl. Lamar finally moves on and shows what he can do as far as playoff performance and what he will be, kind of getting the monkey off his back of being questioned as, is he just a stat guy? Is he just a regular season guy? And can a running quarterback, quote unquote, lead a team to an NFL championship, to a Super Bowl? And I think Lamar finally gets them over the hump. They win that AFC championship, and the Baltimore Ravens represent the AFC in the Super Bowl this year. And in the NFC, just being honest, like I said, I heavily considered the Commanders taking that step. It's something that really intrigues me, honestly, about the interstate rivalry, or not so much a rivalry, but the the potential of having two teams right up the road from each other, both being in the DMV area, competing in the Super Bowl, seeing a Jaden Daniels, who's a great comparison as far as style and play style, just the agility and the throwing ability as far as the accuracy. I love the comparison between Jaden Daniels and Lamar Jackson. While they're different players, they have a lot of similarities, and I would love to see that matchup. But just being honest, like I said about the Ravens, while I think they have top to bottom the best roster in the NFL with the additions that they made and bringing back the guys from last year, I think last year's champions are right there behind them. And they did lose a few guys through this offseason, but I think the Philadelphia Eagles have a chance to repeat and will repeat as NFC champions going into this season. But behind the arm and the legs of a two-time league MVP, I'm going to have to say my final prediction for who wins this year's Super Bowl will be Lamar Jackson. I think he'll be your MVP of the Super Bowl. I think he will lead the Ravens to being the winners of Super Bowl 59. And guys, that's going to wrap it up. I know it was a bit of a quicker episode and definitely more of a quick episode, but like I said, this is a special edition of the Full Court Press podcast. We will do this years and years to come. This will be an annual tradition here on the show heading into the NFL season as we wrap up the preseason. This is the Full Court Press podcast, and I am your host, Elijah Rashad Jackson. Thank you for being with me. I'll see you guys next week.